Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Randana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Randana Yamona Tira Vanachari Yamona Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Javinari Jaya Radha Madhava Javinari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradari Shodanandana Braja Jana Randana Shodanandana Braja Jana Randana Mona Tira Vanachari Mona Tira Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
By the verse of my children. Next,
It's written on there. You wrote the same. So, if you try to put it, you will look up.
Row 25?
Yeah.
Shanti Satmika Maya Mahapama Vedam Nirvedu Savaika tasya samdrashtu Shakti Sarasya Apika Narayana Mahabhaga Vedam Nirvadevaru Saitasya Samdrashtu Shakti Sarasya Apika Narayana Savayitasya sandrashtu Shakti Sarasya Mayanam Shakti Sarasya Mayana Savayitasya sandrashtu Shakti Sarasya
Translation. Sound. That external energy, Ba, is higher. Etas from the Lord, Samdrashtu, the perfect sphere, Shakti, energy, Sat Asat Atmika, as both the cause and the effect. Ayana, all by the name Maya, all fortunate one. Yeah, by which, sincere words, nearly, instructed, the Almighty. Translation: therefore, by divine grace, of the Dhamma Song, Prabhupada, the Lord is the sphere, and the external energy which is clean works at both cause and effect in cosmic manifestation. O greatly fortunate Vidura, this external energy is known as Maya, or illusion. And through her agency only is the entire material manifestation being possible. The material nature known as Maya is both the material and efficient cause of the cosmos, but in the background, the Lord is the consciousness for all activities. As an individual body, the consciousness is the source of all energy in the body. So the supreme consciousness of the Lord is the source of all energies in material nature. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 10 as follows. Yadam Shina Prakriti Sudhidesa Savachanam Etanami Dea Shkaya Bhagavad. Throughout all the energies of material nature, there is a hand of the Supreme Lord as the final superintendent. Due to this supreme cause only, the activities of the material nature appear planned and systematic, and all things regularly evolve. First, you'd like to make some comments?
Dakshina Prakriti Suyate Sachasam. Adrianena Kontea Jagati Parivarti. So material nature is an energy of the Lord's. I take it as a big computer that runs everything. And programmed to do this, sounds come on, the universe, the planets rotate in their proper orbits, the earth produces all the things that are supposed to grow there. How's that? Because the seeds are all programmed. Each seed is programmed to produce a particular type of living entity, its body. Doesn't create the living entity. Nature cannot produce living entities, but it can supply the body, Prakriti. Prakriti means female. Prakriti can provide bodies for all living entities, just as the mother supplies bodies for her children. Her husband gives the seeds. He doesn't create the seeds. He carries the seeds. Seeds are supplied to him according to the arrangement of nature. The male carries the seeds for the different species, and the female then takes that seed, the egg, and she provides the body. The body grows according to the mother's, in the mother's womb. All design. It's a wonderful manufactured design. And no one's figured out how to do that yet. How to make a computer that reproduces. And make male, female. They may try to make a male, female computer, but it will never be as great as the ones made by the Lord, because those are going on perpetually, and all the ingredients are there. This is a complete unit. Om Purnamidam Purnamidam Purnat Purnam Udachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vishishate. Everything animate or inanimate within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. Therefore, one should accept only those things set aside as his quota. And even though so many complete units emanate from him, such as this phenomenal world, this universe emanates from him. As we've been hearing lately, that as he exhales, different universes come out of his pores. It's called mystic slumber, yoga nidra. He takes rest, enjoys consorting with yoga nidra. That's his energy. He has all types of energies. He enjoys consorting with all of them. He consorts with material energy. He impregnates Mahatattva by his glance. Saikshita, he glanced. And with his glance, so many seeds are impregnated with the Mahatattva. And the living entities are given a chance to perform their activities, try to conquer over nature. That's what they're trying to do. But the Lord is trying to purify them and reprogram them so they can be helpful in his system. So they have the opportunity. But if they don't use it properly, then the whole time they waste in the world. So when the other manifestation is taken back into the body of Mahavishnu, they also go back. And they have to remain unmanifest for 311 trillion years of our archive. That's a long time to nothing valuable. Better to be awake and active. That's going on in the spiritual world. Vaikunthas and the Loka Vrindavan, they don't close down during the non-manifest. They're always going on. So better to go there, continue enjoying, rather than just dying. It's like death. Going back into the body of Mahavishnu is like death, because although the soul doesn't die, it becomes inactive. And it's a long time to be inactive. people generally don't like to die, so they should also not like, it should be explained to them this idea of merging or trying to become one. This is the same type of thing. Or even going on trying to enjoy material things, sense gratification. That's also dreaming. It's a dream state. There's no real enjoyment there. It's like dreaming at night, and you might be winning some prizes and you're getting money. And you wake up, there's no money. All just illusion, hallucination. We're taking this hallucination of all these material circumstances, bodies, families, the adventures. We're taking this as real, but it's only illusion. It's a dream. So, I did that song, row, row your boat, gently down the stream, merrily, 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 merrily. Life is but a dream. We agree with that. But if one engages his life in the service of Krishna, that's not a dream, that's real. Because Krishna is eternal. And he's a supreme conscious being. Chaitanya is Chaitanam. Nityo Nityanam, Chaitanya is Chaitanam. He's the supreme eternal of all the eternal living entities. He maintains all the others. We may say, I don't believe in that. It doesn't really matter if we don't believe it. Still, he's maintaining us. We can't do anything without his allowing it. He has to give sanction. Hiranyakashipu couldn't do all the nefarious things he wanted to do because he didn't have the sanction from Vishnu. He had sanction from Brahma, but not from Vishnu. So sometimes Brahma and Shiva, they give sanctions that the Lord doesn't appreciate. Vishnu, he has to chastise them. It happens a lot. Like Brahma, after he gave the benedictions to Hiranyakashipu, Krishna chastised him. In the future, don't give such benedictions to these demons, because they take them and make it very difficult. And nothing's difficult for the Lord, but still, he wants things to go on in a particular way. So this is all a great science. And amazingly, nobody's teaching this in the higher universities. No one's teaching this information about how the universe is going. Rather, they prefer just to speculate. As we heard like the other day, like the cockroach in the basement, they likes to speculate how the skyscraper came about. But he didn't. He wasn't there. He doesn't know. But still he speculates. And he come up with some ridiculous ideas of how the universe began from nothing. So we don't go along with that. We have a completely different view. Everything is controlled and owned by the Lord. And everything is working exactly under his direction. So then someone may say, then he's responsible for all the bad things. No, he's not responsible for the bad things. Is the judge responsible for the punishments that the criminals have to get? No, it's not the judge's fault. it's not the government's fault. It's the criminal's fault. He hasn't followed the instructions of the Lord. Naturally, he has to suffer. That's proof that there is God, not proof there isn't God. The atheists take it just opposite. They say, if there were God, there couldn't be all these bad things like hurricanes, tornadoes, forest fires. No, that's proof there is God. That means you do the wrong thing, you suffer. But then they'll say, well, why is the person suffering? Maybe he didn't do anything wrong, little children. So it's a great science to learn how the law of karma is working. It's carried over not just in this life, but from previous lives. I may have certain activities I've performed in previous lives, and I'm waiting to receive the package. Whether the package will be nice or not nice, I have to wait and see. And that's called karma. So simply because someone's a child doesn't mean he didn't perform things in the past. And things are awaiting him. He'll receive. That's how in the Vedic culture they can predict. The Vedic culture can predict what's going to happen to a person, how much wealth he'll get, how much sense gratification he'll get, so many things. Because it's a planned thing. It's not that it's just accidental, going on by chance. It's planned out. He will live this long, he'll do this. And he's under the direction of the agents of the Lord, demigods, Deva. And the Devas, they're in charge of those that are put under their care. It's like in a penitentiary. The ones who are sent to the penitentiary by higher authorities, that penitentiary takes care of them. These ones here, they have to go in solitary confinement. They're too troublesome to have mixing with the others. These are better behaved. They can be given some facilities. And these are about to be set free. Next year they get out. So there's all different karma for all the different living entities. And the penitentiary keepers, or even for good things. If you want to go to the heavenly planets, you can't just go there.
Anybody have any comments or questions? Dr. Brian.
Hare Krishna. So my question relates to Brahma and Shiva and other demigods offering benedictions to maybe nefarious people, but just, so I guess my question is simply, what is in it for Brahma or Shiva to grant a benediction? Because I think it must be something more than flattery. That there must be some, is it a subtle energy? Like what is, like if, I forget the name of the personality who was flailing himself and cutting off the meat of his leg for Lord Shiva until Shiva came and said, stop, like, I will do this for you. So what is actually the benefit to the demigods themselves?
Benefit for the demigods. I mean, ultimately, what is the benefit for doing material things? Then there's no real benefit. It's only temporary. But in terms of the material sphere, okay, what's the benefit? Somebody's approaching them, and then because somebody's going so far out of their way to do some kind of austerity for them, they feel obliged to reciprocate with that certain individual. And like Maharaj pointed out, that they give out these benedictions that they shouldn't necessarily. So then they end up learning tough lessons from that. And like the pastime you mentioned exemplifies that. So Lord Shiva gave this benediction to Vrikasura. And yeah, the whole pastime was there arranged by the Lord to show that the demigods aren't in complete control, and ultimately they have to take shelter of the Lord also. So the Lord tricked this demon. So we hear throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam that devotees get cursed. It's a very common thing to happen. And the pure devotees, they're accepting the curse and seeing it as the mercy of the Lord. So in this way, it purifies them and brings them closer to the Lord. Whereas if we're just after all the benedictions, material benedictions, like I mentioned, which actually aren't even good because that's material, then usually it's just a source of problems. So, and I can't tell you exactly why, Shiva's like, oh yeah, this guy, I like him, let's give him this, but it's just a little bit of insight. I hope it helps at all. Dr. Aiden had something?
Maharaj had mentioned something about how enjoyment is a dream state when we're in that doing that thing. Anything is a dream state, and so I'm wondering, is also the process before engaging in something besides Krishna, is that also a dream state? So is the temptation for like like the meditation, or like oh, this is coming up in my head, and like I don't, in the battle, the kind of like, which way do I go, the fork in the road, is that also a dream? So not really a fork in the road, is it? Or is it something that like, okay, this is something I'm actually here, and I can say that this is reality, or can I say, okay, this temptation, it means nothing, and so I just keep going forward. I don't.
Talking about the battle that takes place in the mind when we're trying to make a determined effort to go to Krishna.
Yeah.
So whatever's not connected to Krishna's asat means it's temporary, it's not eternal, which ultimately is illusory, which this is what Maharaj was mentioning. If you're dreaming and you dream of winning so much money in your dream, you wake up and you have no dream. You have no money. So similarly, whatever material enjoyment you get here, it's temporary. It doesn't last. Eventually you have to wake up and, it's not real. So as we take up devotional service, there's a struggle, like you mentioned. Part of us wants to be free and enjoy and do whatever we want to do, to be happy. And part of us wants, okay, let me push, let me surrender to Krishna, let me take up the process. That is real. It's not dream, because how do we know that? It's coming from those who are presenting it, who are beyond this dreamlike state. The self-realized souls who've crossed over this material ocean. Is coming from the scriptures, which the Lord has provided to the souls in the material world, so we can actually escape this situation that we're in. So that's very much real, but we're still enticed by these phantasmagoria, this illusion that pops up of, oh, if I go do this activity, I'll be happy. I don't really need to work this hard for this. It will be okay. In the fifth canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a chapter. It's called what is it? The Forest of Material Enjoyment. And at one portion, it describes when a person goes into this forest, which is all an analogy, but they get lost in the forest because they're trying to reap the fruits of the forest. And at one part in the forest, there's what's it called? Will-o'-the-wisp. It's like a phenomenon that happens in swamplands where it looks like there's this light floating in the middle of nowhere in the swamp. So people go in, they see this, and they're very enticed by it, but there's nothing really there. So this is the same thing of our material satisfaction, where we're enticed by the flashing lights, the exotic colors and the smells and the freedom that comes with it. But it's actually, you're not seeing the shackles that are ultimately there. So we can either have golden shackles or iron shackles or rusty shackles, but shackles are shackles. So Maharaj was giving the example of prisoners. So yeah, so whether we're super rich, super beautiful, super whatever you could think of, ultimately we still have shackles. So we should give up the shackles, and the way we give up the shackles is by surrendering to Krishna. Surrendering to Krishna is representative in taking up the process of Krishna consciousness. And it's paradoxical that, okay, I could go be free in the material world and I'm free to do whatever I want, but you're actually shackled up and your mind is completely lost. But by surrendering to Krishna, it seems like, oh, I have to surrender my free will, my independence. I'll give up who I am. But that actually frees you from the shackles. And there's an example that, I don't know if you've ever had a dog, but if you have a dog that's like a rebellious dog, you have to keep him on the leash. You let him off the leash, he'll go running like crazy. But if you have a dog who's very obedient and can listen to your instructions and commands and, looks to you for instruction, then there's no really need for a leash. So same thing, because we're rebellious of Krishna, we need this tight leash, which is in the form of the modes of material nature. But for one who's beyond that, there's no such need. Examples, Narada Muni, he travels freely wherever he wants within this universe or beyond this universe, because he's a pure devotee. Wherever he goes, he's just glorifying the Lord. You have something?
This is in relation to Maharaj's comment. This is when he was talking about the seed. I was just wondering, what does Krishna do to program a seed to grow?
What does he do to program it?
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know. I could tell you he plants the seed within the material nature. He creates all the different causes and effects that we see and experience and beyond our experience in this world through his multifarious energies. So he's different potencies and energies are being, injected and interacting in different ways, which are ultimately manifesting as the modes of material nature, time, all these different aspects that, create this material world as we know it. It's actually described a lot more by Maitreya Muni in this, not anywhere soon, but later on. He talks about the nature of time. He talks about the pradhana, which is like the aggregate substance of the material world, like before it's manifest, and then how the material world becomes manifest, how the different Purusha avatars manifest in the material world to, create it, and then how the demigods are created, how the modes of material nature are working. So, all these things are there to have the world work in this way that it does. So how Krishna, injects that or programs that in there, I don't know, but we can look at that and we get a much better idea of, the total substance of what is making up the material world. Okay, anything else? Just Radha Damodar.
Well, I have a question in relation to the analogy that Maharaj gave about the judge. I was just wondering, like, I've heard this from atheists as well. So, like, okay, the judge isn't responsible for the crime committed, but if he had as much control over the situation as God did, then he would be. Because say he had control over the whole thing and he allowed the murder to happen and then he punished the murderer afterwards. Right. So if he had that degree of control that God has, then he would be implicated in some way or another or held responsible. So why doesn't that apply for God?
I was thinking the same thing when Maharaj said this, because okay, you have a judge. A judge is independent of the government. He's a representative and working for the government, but he's a single entity. Whereas God, in this analogy, is both the judge and the government simultaneously. So then, how is he aloof when he's also in control? So I was thinking about it and take it further, how Maharaj gave this analogy of the prisoners. So there's prisoners. Why are they in prison? They acted wrongly according to the government's will. So then they broke the law. Then the judge condemns them to imprisonment. So similarly, God has laws that are there in order, that are ordained in the scriptures, and these are for the benefit of the living entities, both individually and collectively. So when we rebel against these laws or scriptural injunctions, then it only creates problems for the self, the individual, and everybody else around you. Actually, Krishna, he explains this in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. So in one sense, it seems like God is cruel because he doesn't have to do this. But we're viewing it from a diseased state. So that's why we're able to come up with that way of looking at it. Because if you're not in this diseased state and you're seeing it from the spiritual platform, then very clearly you see the disease, the problem that's there. Yeah, Maharaj would like to answer. That'd be great. Wait, you have a question or Maharaj has something?
I say it on behalf of
Yeah.
Maharaj. He was saying that he gives the education as well. So many revealed scriptures tell us what's right and what's wrong. And this is our free will to do with that what we will. And this doesn't mean that God is bad or evil or anything. I mean, it doesn't take away his love for us anymore. This is his arrangement to have us, go back to him if we choose to. So it's, the education. This was the main part.
Ultimately, we're in this disease state and we have to be educated to see the material world's not for our enjoyment, that we're not the center of existence. But looking at it from the disease state, then you could always look as God, as the oppressor, who's forcing me to do this, who's in control. And, this is coming from envy. This is the disease in itself, which prevents you from actually receiving that knowledge. In the Bhagavad Gita, the verse we just read last night, text 8 through 12, Krishna describes different attributes of knowledge. And he says, whatever is besides this is ignorance. But the first word that he used is humility. And humility is important because without humility, we can't get knowledge at all. So I think there's a connection there. I'll let everybody figure it out themselves. All right, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Gauranatai ki jai, Vanchakapatarubhyas Chakipasan Viva Chapatitanam Pavani Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha.